From Anshe Sfard Bethel Emeth Congregation, it's time to take 10 minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein.
Welcome to our discussion of Parshat Yitro, Links to Humanity. If we look in the first part of the Parsha, we find Moshe discussing various things with Yitro, having a wonderful meal together with Yitro and Aaron and the elders. There's this wonderful, loving relationship between Yitro and Moshe, Jethro and Moshe. He runs to greet him. He bows down to him. He gets advice from him. He treats him like a son to try to help him to manage his day. Then we have the giving of the Torah. Very different. You're one man advising another on how to run the country, and then the Torah mandating from above what the laws are to be. And what is the relationship between these two? We've spoken about it in past years. Is it a relationship of negation as opposed to before we got the Torah, we would get advice from human beings as to how to run a country, but afterwards we get advice only from the Torah. The kulaba, everything's in the Torah, we don't need Jethro anymore. That notion is belied by the notion that after all, Moshe was looking for advice from Jethro even later on. When he wanted him to be his eyes. Perhaps that too was a mistake. It's belied by the fact that the idea of the various elders and the Sarei Meot, the various officers of hundreds and thousands, they do continue to some degree later on in the Torah. So his ideas were not thrown out the window. But I'd like to suggest another link between these two ideas. The second possibility would be that it shows the flow, that even though we receive advice from Yitro, we don't throw it out the window. It continues even when we get the Torah. We don't throw our minds out the window when we get the Torah. We continue to use human reason. A third option is what I'd like to talk about today. There is a Midrash, it's found in Machzor Vitri, the literature that Rashi inherited from those before him in Germany. And it's in Midrash Hashkem, an unusual collection of Midrash called Midrash Hashkem. And it goes like this, that the relationship between Moshe and Yitro was not merely a familial one, but it was a more spiritual and ethical one as well. Vayol Moshe l'shevet ha'ish, in Parshat Shemot it said that Moshe desired to stay with Jethro. He wasn't so enamored with the daughters of Jethro. He was very much interested in Jethro and his teachings. And this is brought out in this following Midrash, that we know there's a special staff with which Moses did the various plagues. And where does that staff come from? So the rabbis say it's a staff that has God's name on it. It's a staff that was created from the time of creation, the Bein Hashmashot, the twilight of creation. And then this Midrash goes on to say that it was given from Adam to his son Seth, or Shet, and passed on from one generation to another, and the forefathers all the way to Joseph. Joseph kind of lost it in Egypt. The various necromancers and leaders in Egypt stole it. Jethro, according to Midrash, was one of those leaders in Egypt, who then later ran away. And he stole it from him, planted it in his backyard, and it began to grow. No one was able to uproot it till Moshe came and pulled the roots out of the ground. Then he knew that he would be the Redeemer of Israel. This has certain ancient, perhaps Roman sort of echoes of the idea of who can pull out a tree and things like that. We find the students of Bar Kokhba were able to pull out a tree while they were running on a horse. But what is it symbolizing? What are the rabbis saying? Rabbi Elijah ben Amozig, who was a very radical Italian author who lived in the early 1800s or so, who wrote Israel and Humanity, translated by Maxwell Luria. He writes that it's really a very clear metaphor for the idea that Jethro Yitro is really gives some of the foundations of the Jewish tradition. But I'd like to suggest it in a slightly different kind of way, and that is, what is Jethro? What does it mean he gets something from Adam, from Seth, and they pass it on through the forefronts? What does that mean? There was a code of moral ethics known as the Sheva Mitzvot B'nai Noach, the laws of Noah, really from the time of Adam. According to the Talmud, the 7 laws are from Adam, Vayitzav Elokim et Adam Limor. The rabbis derive the 7 laws not from Noah, but from a verse regarding Adam. In other words, there were certain basic moral foundational principles that Adam had from the very beginning. Now the question is, what's the relationship of that covenant, the covenant of Noah, what we call the covenant of Noah, of Adam, of humanity, and the covenant of Sinai? So one might think that's totally disjointed. That's the old rule. That's the old school. And now we have something better, new and improved. Toss out the old. The idea of Jethro, the story of Yitro, and the wonderful meeting and a meal that Yitro and Moshe and Aaron and the elders shared together right before they got the Torah, or at least that's how it's presented. Maybe chronologically incorrect, but the Torah is trying to make a point that we do put it together because there is a link. Our adherence to the code of morality, because we're human beings, because we're part of the families of Noah, of Adam, of humanity, is not disconnected from the receiving of the Torah. There is a flow in the Parsha. There's Yitro, his ideas as a human being, as a wise man, as someone who received the traditions from Shem ve'ever, so to speak. There's a flow from there to receiving the Torah. As Rabbi Finkelstein says, there's an ethic outside of the halakha in the sense that we use our brains as well, and there's a human tradition of ethics. There's a human sense of ethics, and the Torah is simply a layer on top of that basic human layer, and that is what the Parsha is trying to say. Why is the beginning of Yitro a man giving advice to his son-in-law, juxtaposed to God giving advice and commandments to the Jewish people and to the world? What's the connection? The connection is that Jethro is one who passes the rod, literally. He passes the wand, he passes the tradition of the Semites, of basic humanity that God has bequeathed to the human being. And the Torah is an overlay on top of that humanity that we all share. In addition, we have the Torah to guide us more particularly and in a more refined kind of way. But never should we reject the underpinnings, which is the basic decency that's implanted in our souls and in the tradition of man. It's all connected. This is the Parsha. And this week of Tu B'Shvat, perhaps this notion, this Midrash of the tree representing tradition, representing the Torah. Eitz Chaim Hi Lachazikim Ba. The Torah is a tree of life for those who hold on to it. Perhaps this has additional echoes of the meaning of Tu B'Shvat as well, to hold on to that tree, both the tree of life, the tree of the Torah, and also the tree of this staff which was planted in Jethro's backyard, which Moses brought with him as part of the underpinnings of everything that we're all about. We have the Torah, and underlying all that is a basic decency. We get it from Jethro, we get it from Adam, we get it from God and our neshama. Thank you for joining us here at the Anshe Sephardi Beth Elameth congregation for a discussion of Parshat Yitro. Join us each week for the discussion of the Parsha, various how-to videos and holiday videos as well. Thank you, Jason Lefkowitz, our producer. Thank you.
This has been 10 Minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein. To learn more, visit ASBEE.org.